Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Dawn Tyler Lee, and I have the pleasure of serving as Deputy Chief of Staff of External Affairs in the office of Mayor Ginther. And as you can see on our agenda, my job is to give you a welcome. So welcome. For those of you who might be in the Coleman Building for the first time, welcome to the Coleman Building. It is my new favorite city building for obvious reasons. If you have a chance after our meeting to kind of stroll around, please feel free to do so, but we're very proud of this building and use it for a lot of different meetings and appreciate you coming down for today's session. Let me just start really with a thank you. And when we set this meeting, I'm not sure if we realized that it was Giving Tuesday, but I can't think of a better room of people to be with than a room full of social service providers who are always giving of their time and their talents and their treasure to make sure families in our community have what they need to thrive. So thank you for that. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the hard work that you do. And on days like today, when the weather is so bitter, it just really makes us think about those in our community who may not have all the resources they need to thrive. And it's because of our nonprofit partners in the room today that we have to thank to make sure that that all comes together. If you've heard the mayor speak over the last 3 years since he took office, it's been 3 years, going into our 4th year, you've heard him talk about his priorities. His priorities are neighborhoods, neighborhoods, neighborhoods. His priorities are in the area of reducing infant mortality, increasing early childhood education, and making sure that those in our community who maybe have not experienced or enjoyed the success story that is Columbus have the opportunity to do so. So we're glad you're here today to learn more about our human services competitive process. This, as many of you know, is the first time we've opened up the process since Mayor Ginther has been mayor. And we're excited about the framework that we've put together and that we look forward to sharing with you today. I'm sure you've had an opportunity to peruse it, and hopefully you see the theme in the RFP around the things that are important to this administration and things that also you all are doing every day around neighborhood stability, around family resilience, around creating opportunity for families in our community. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means for this RFP process, but I really just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for all of the work that you do day in and day out, seen and unseen, on behalf of families in our community. I'd like to also acknowledge my city colleagues who have worked diligently on this RFP. I'd like to acknowledge Kim Stans, who almost everybody knows in the Department of Development, Elon Sims in the mayor's office, and I don't think they're here, but also Hannah Reed and Hannah Jones, who have spent a great deal of time putting together this RFP in a way that's meaningful for our community. I'll just put it out there right now because I know it's the question on all of your minds: how much is available? The pool that we have to work with this year will be approximately $4 million. And we know that the needs far exceed the pool that is available. That is the pool that we have available, and I know that's the first question that folks have, so I wanted to make you aware of that from the front so you don't have to worry about it throughout the session. And we'll move through some more specifics about the RFP, and we want to make sure we've got plenty of time to answer any questions that you might have. So again, thank you, not just for being here, but for the work that you do. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Kim Stans.
Okay, I do not like microphones that just sit in one place because I move all over the place, but we're doing this because we're also videoing this for those who couldn't be here today. So again, my name is Kim Stans. I'm the Human Services Coordinator for the City of Columbus within the Department of Development. And so looking at our agenda, it looks really brief. We're going to dig into some things, but we're going to try to walk through this fairly quickly, knowing that some of these things are online, and we'll put out this this PowerPoint and the PowerPoint from United Way after this session. So, but here's what we're going to do. Is going to walk through the RFP very quickly. We're going to do a little demonstration about what United Way has partnered with us, and if you're familiar with their portal that they've put together, we are partnering with them to hopefully make this application process much simpler for all of us. If you've used it before, you're going to find nothing's changed other than it says City of Columbus. We are a sub-licensee with United Way, and I think it's a great partnership. So Doreen will be up here after my part talking about that a little bit, and then we'll have questions and answers. And as I said to Ernest earlier, front row people are not allowed to ask questions because you're too close. So my first question for everybody is, how many of you are going to ask for $4 million? Okay, good. Well, we do not have a ceiling. We did not say you could only do 100,000 or 200,000 or 5,000. There is no ceiling and no floor. So, but use wisdom, and that's what we say throughout this. Use wisdom. Leveraging is very key to what we want to see happen. How you're leveraging others' resources, others in the community in terms of collaborative partners. But there is money available, and it's for yours to ask for. So you're going to have to demonstrate to us both the need and how you're using that money. That's just like a really brief, here's what it looks like. So let me dig into this a little bit and let me know. We're going to have questions at the end, so I'm going to try to run through it without any questions. Hopefully it'll be pretty clear. So here are the guidelines. You'll see this in the RFP, so none of this should be new. I'm pretty sure everything we put in this slideshow is in the RFP itself. The RFP is available online with the City Department of Development website. And so it'll just say, you go in and it'll say RFP, and you just push on that and RFP comes up, and also the portal to United Way in order to apply. So here's this is kind of cool. I can like look at what I'm saying instead of looking down all the time. That's great. So all agencies that were awarded funding under the competitive round that we had in 2014, who were funded in 2015, 16, 17, and then an extension year of 2018, all of you can come in and ask for funds. So there were about 31 agencies who were funded under that round. All those agencies are welcome to come in, and all those who were not funded under that round. So if you're a 501c3, working with folks who are in the City of Columbus, you are welcome to come and apply for this fund. I'll say this probably several times. As you see the vision and the goals and the priorities that we have of investment, I really want you to think about how do you fit into that. Don't ask me how you fit into it. I want you to think about how you fit into this. We tried to create this so that really we're moving people in a direction. This is really about moving, and you'll see in a couple minutes about where we're moving people, but I want you to be thinking, what is it that we do? What is our mission? And then how do we fit within this vision and the investments that this administration wants to make? Just really quickly, with the city, if you want to get a contract and if you want to get paid, you have to be registered under their vendor services. That's within the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. That's online, pretty easy to do. So you just need to make sure that you're in and that it's up to date, because I think it's every 2 years they expect you to update that information. And then also, if it's applicable, and you'll have to look under public safety, there's charitable solicitations license or a permit. You just look on there and see if you have to have that, and then you'll just demonstrate to us, I needed this, and we can show you that we have it, or we did not need this. Okay? If you have questions about that, save it at the end. If you have questions, just start writing them down, and we'll take as many questions as we can at the end. Elon, who you mentioned earlier, he's standing in the back. He said he'd stay till 5:30 and answer all your questions. I'm leaving right at 3. Okay, so next thing, just a little bit about the funding. So none of the agencies that were funded under the previous round are guaranteed funding going forward. So that's to let you know who have never received this funding, that you're not, it's a level playing field, I guess is the best way to say it. Just because you got funded in 2014 for the next 4 years, there's no guarantee, and so the competition isn't us and them. We tried as best as we could to say, this is open, it's level for everyone to come in, whether you're a very small nonprofit or you're a large nonprofit. Okay? The components of moving to economic security and resilience. So these are our investment priorities, and I'll go over those a little bit later in the next couple slides. But those are our priorities. So you want to align with one or more of those priorities. So as you hear them, maybe for the first time, if you've seen them already, think about how you align with one or more. Organizations may apply for funds, so you can either start a new program or a new initiative. Someone told me they don't call things programs anymore. They call them initiatives. So you can call it a program or initiative. You can start something new, or you can come in and say, this is what we're maintaining because it fits with what you say your investment priorities are. We want to continue doing that. Or you want to enhance something that you're already doing. So this is not just about funding something new. It's not just about funding something existing. It's both. And also enhancement. Grant funds can be used for items such as operations, administration, staffing, supplies, expenses. So if you've seen our budget in the past, nothing's really changed. That's kind of how our budget looks, is those are the line items. So salaries, fringes, those kinds of things. For me, as someone who looks at lots of invoices from different folks, that whatever is the easiest thing, if you've, like, let's say you say the city's funding is going to help us in this part of our budget for this program, make it what's easiest for you to, instead of like doing 5 different things, if there's one thing that you can get to us and say, I'm going to cover the rest with something else, if it was me, I'd make it easier. But that's not to say you can't do all of them. You could say we want something in salaries, fringes, supplies, and let me say this once, but I'll probably say it a million times, no food, no banquets for your staff, no food to put in the refrigerator for break time. So no food items, just the auditor just has, I mean, sometimes we do food, like if it's for a food pantry, to buy food like from Mid-Ohio Food Bank, or the produce market, like we did some of that with Mid-Ohio Food Bank under the last round. We're buying food there, so but not food for parties and those kinds of things. And then, did I put that on there? Okay, so the last one on there is grants cannot be used for capital expenditures. I mean, we can use general fund for those things, but we're not going to under this funding. So new construction, renovation, building repairs, architectural plans, engineering plans, anything to do with capital expenditures, we just don't do. So buying equipment, we try to avoid that too. Okay, so those are kind of some of the general things under the program grant guidelines. So when we get to the questions and answers, if you have questions about that, I'll let Elon answer all of them. Okay, so this is something that we've been thinking about. This is where I want to walk around, but I can't leave the mic. So picture me walking around the room. This is something that we've really been thinking a lot about. And maybe you can poke holes in it. Maybe you can say, oh, it should have been this, it should have been that. But we really feel strongly that this is a vision that we can have, not just as the administration, not just for the human service funding, but a vision that we can have as a community. So as we come together and we bring the city's resources and we start tying that to other resources within the community, a vision of economic security and resilience for everybody. So that's the vision. That's when we look at the future, that's where we want folks to move. So this is, as I said earlier, this is about moving people. So when you look at these priorities, those focus, it's not just about jobs, but that's a part of it. Income through employment, that's one of the priorities. And these aren't in order of first, second, third, fourth, fifth. But it's income through employment, job quality, education and training, financial capability, stabilization, and resource supports. And later on, we'll go through a little bit more of what each of those mean. But those are the priorities. So any one of those can take a family, take an individual, take a young person, and move them towards economic security or economic resilience, no matter where they are. So I want you to think hard again, what is it that, and I'm going to use the first person, so what is it that I do in our organization, in our mission, that fits one of those or more of those, and how do we move that, how are we currently moving people, or how could we be moving people towards economic security? So I was talking with someone earlier before we started about medical expenses. I had medical expenses in August, and because I work for the city and have really great benefits, I just got to watch somebody else pay for that. Now, I put money in, and the city's been putting money in over the 30-plus years that I've been here towards health insurance, but that's a benefit. So that's part of my budget and my own budget. So think of households' budgets. What is it that you bring to the table that helps fill their budget, that moves them towards economic security? What is it that you do that comes to them as a household and as a family or as an individual that makes them more resilient? That when things go wrong, they bounce back, they spring back. When there's trauma in their lives, what are they doing that helps them spring back so they keep moving towards economic security and resilience? Okay, so this is what we've been thinking a lot about. And there's since you're going to get this, I don't know if we can get to this website or not, but this website that's at the bottom that says Basic Economic Security Tables, or BEST, is what we've been looking at. So if you go on there, Elin, I don't think we can do this, can we? Can I we're not going to try to do it because we might mess up the whole thing. So if you go on there, when you get this, or if you write it down now, there are tables there. If you haven't seen this before, you can go to Columbus, Ohio, and put in there one worker in the household, 2 children, and benefits or no benefits as a worker, and brings up this thing and said, here's what we think, this is what BEST says, here's what in Columbus, Ohio, is where someone is economically secure. And it's going to blow your mind, because most of us are talking about living wage, $15 an hour. It'll come back depending on what you put in, especially with that child care line item in there. We're talking about $20 to $25 an hour to be economically secure. So we're not going to ask you to say, okay, what are you going to do to get jobs that are $25 an hour? What we're going to do is say, what are the things that you're doing that move people in that direction? Maybe it's through education and training. Maybe it's through what's the kind of job quality that they need that gets them in a work environment that helps them move in that direction. Maybe they're starting out at $12 an hour, but we know that they can move through that. Okay, so when you get a chance, look at those tables. Don't do it now, even though I know all of you have smartphones. It's really interesting. So that's kind of informed us in saying, yeah, that's where we want to move, because this is Columbus, Ohio. And we can look at Columbus, Ohio, and what it takes to have a budget that helps us be secure. Okay? And Elin, you just can put the timer thing up and say, Kim, you're just going way too long. Okay. So income through employment, This is all in the RFP, but just briefly, this is earning through employment amount required to afford basic level of necessity. That's all this is. So how would you be working with someone to help them earn money through employment? A lot of different ways to do that, but that's what this is saying. Some examples: addressing barriers to employment, job placement, establishing employer partners, or access to employers. Access to jobs, another way of saying it. Having living wages or higher paying jobs, or you're looking at pay equity. So those are just examples. Those aren't the things we're expecting. We're just saying those are examples of how to help someone who is to move towards economic security through income through employment. So job quality. So we picked this up off some place that said, hey, here's a good way to think about job quality. So if you pick 3 of these, but it'd be great if you had all 5, these are things that are saying, hey, this is a quality job. I have a living wage. I have basic benefits. I have career building opportunities. I have wealth building opportunities. There's a fair and engaging workplace. So if you're doing something or you want to do something that works with households that are in your sphere of influence, or what you want to be in your sphere of influence, these are things that you could say, we're going to work towards these, and here's how we're doing that, and here's how we can show you that we're doing that. So that's what we mean by job quality. So some examples: starting or expanding nonprofit social ventures, technical assistance to small business or social enterprises, support for minority, female, or immigrant entrepreneurs. Again, just examples, but you could probably think of 100 others. Okay, the third investment priority, education and training. So two things. What's education? This is just some simple definitions. Providing access to education and training that lead to higher wage, quality jobs. So training it often involves job experience, skill development, performance, productivity, learning by doing. Something that's a training could be apprenticeship, and we'll show that in a second. Education could be classroom learning, theoretical learning, reasoning and judgment. So what does that make you think of? Apprenticeships, internships, trade skills, access to GED, access to higher education, resume writing. Those are all education, training examples of here's a way that we can move people to economic security and resilience. Okay, so the fourth investment strategy is financial capability, the capacity based on knowledge, skills, and access to manage financial resources effectively. So if you're doing something or you want to do something that, again, think about that budget again, and what's going to make me resilient? Is this one of those things that you could be doing that helps people be more resilient in terms of working with their budget or working with their decisions about finances, moving them to economic security? So some examples. I'm not going to read through all these, but financial education, coaching, again, all these are in the RFP. Free tax preparation, incentivized savings programs. Okay, I'll go back one more time, just so those are all just, again, examples. And I think in the RFP there's even more, just examples, because I always find one person to pick on, so I'm going to keep picking on Elon. He just found all kinds of examples about financial capability. So if you want to write about it, send it to him, and he'll review it, and he'll give you all the money. No, see, I'm just picking on him. Okay. Stabilization and resource support. So if you have not found a way that you feel like you fit into this, this is it. So look at this description. Services that provide people in need with coordinated direct access to services and supports to maintain stable housing and income. So let me give you a really good example that I use and some of you have heard me say this already. So let's say you run a food pantry. Okay, how do I fit with moving people to economic security and resilience? Well, think about the budget. So food is on everybody's budget. But if I have to continue to pay for food in order to maintain my economic security and my resilience, and then I have a medical need, I don't have benefits at work, so I either stop paying for food so that I can pay this, or I don't get that medical attention. So the food pantry puts itself in that budget and says, we're part of moving people forward. So think creatively, this is how I fit. Because one of the things we're going to do, and we didn't put it in the slideshow, but it's in the RFP, is everybody who is awarded funds, we're going to be calling together at least quarterly, all of you as agencies, to say, hey, let's all learn from each other just a little bit. What are we doing together to move people forward? Because again, this is not just the administration, this is a community thing. So if we're learning from each other, moving together in ways that maybe we haven't before, we're going to be serving Columbus in a better way. So think about those 5 priorities. So who can tell me the 5 priorities without looking at anything? Who's got them memorized? Okay, go for it.
Stabilization and resource.
You got the first one.
Education and training.
Right.
Job quality.
Right.
I want to say workforce development.
That was an example of.
That's fine.
Okay, what's the other 2? Financial capability, income through employment. Okay, that was the first one. Okay, good job. Let's give him a round of applause. Okay. So here's some examples of the stabilization in case you hadn't thought of. So this also includes transportation, food security, childcare, stable housing, substance use disorder services. So think bigger. But what I want to really challenge you is don't go outside your mission just to chase this money. Okay? Don't do that. I mean, you might do it anyway, but really think about your mission and say, yeah, we can do this within our mission. And with the current resources that we have, if we just expand a little bit, or here's something new that we really think we can do, because one of the things that we'll be looking at is, do you have the capacity to do this, and is this within your mission? So if your mission is food pantry, and that's it, that's all it's been, and then you say we're going to do workforce development, we'd say, okay, where's the capacity? How does that fit to that larger mission? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but just be careful, okay? Don't go chasing the money. And again, $4 million sounds like a lot of dollars, and it is, but it's really not a lot of dollars. Again, when we had about $4 million under the first round, 39 programs, 31 agencies. Okay, so there were about 47 agencies who at least RSVP'd. There's probably more here than that. So just be thinking about that. Okay. Performance measures. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it's in the RFP, but we are really big. We're all learning. What does it mean to have outcomes and outputs? So we're not just looking for number of service units. We want to see impact. We want all of us to be learning more about this. So the agencies that are funded, we want you to show us what you already know, but also what you want to learn. So part of your funding request could be around measuring, because that's not something you're doing well yet, or you just want to do better at. So there's a capacity thing. So that would be something you might want to think about. So be thinking, most of you have probably been through lots of trainings around outcomes and outputs. So when you read the RFP, just kind of look at where we're coming from, see if that makes sense to you. So we are going to ask you to measure things. about outputs, like what's the unit of service, what are the numbers of units of service, what are the unduplicated persons you're serving. You'll be thinking about that. So there are outputs and there are outcomes. Again, for us, an outcome is a measure of impact. So percent of households that are growing in their income, not just we did 50, but the percent of those you served shows us some impact and moves us toward that impact and says, here's people that we're impacting. Okay, I don't know if you can see that really well. I can't from here. So here's how we took our income priorities, so the 5 things, and said, here's an outcome that we're going to look for in each one of these. So when you pick one, look at that outcome. You may have others that you want to bring to the table and say there's other things. And again, we're going to have this out on the website. So we'll, and I think we'll have emails of people who came, so we might be able to email this out too. But there's outcomes for each investment priority. And you'll see this as we go through, I think it's on the EC Impact too, right, Doreen, as we go through. So you'll see this as you do your application on the United Way portal. You'll see these outcomes again. So this is what we're looking for, but you may want other. So that's our process and timeline. It's in the RFP. So basically it's January 4th, 5 o'clock in the portal of United Way, which Doreen's going to get up here and talk about in a couple minutes. January 4th, that's the deadline. What's the deadline? January 4th. And so because this is so fun, we're not going to have people walking to my desk trying to drop things off, like at 5:05. It's like we have this portal that we can just say, sorry, this is closed. This has never happened to me before. This is going to be really interesting and fun for me. Well, at 5:05, Elin and Doreen and I are just going to have a party. So what's the deadline? January 4th. Okay, so then that month we will be reviewing all those proposals, making conditional awards, and the reason they're called conditional is because by January 25th, the budget more than likely will not have been passed yet. So we can't say, oh yeah, you're going to get your $100,000 that you asked for. Because if City Council says, hey, we don't want to put $4 million into this anymore, we want to move it over to something else, they're allowed to do that. No one would like them. Oh wait, is there anybody from City Council here? Wow. Okay, so no one would like them if they did that, but they're not going to do that. But we have to just put that word conditional on there just to cover all of us. Okay, so then from February to March, then we'll enter into grant awards, we'll have contracts, we'll have some trainings that will bring everybody together and start executing those agreements and all that kind of good stuff. Okay, so that's the timeline. So you have between now and January 4th to put some things together. Okay, let me see what's next. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to save the questions and answers. Elin, you're going to set up the next thing. So while Elin's doing that, I want you to turn to one of your neighbors, introduce yourself, and say, here's a question that I'm going to be asking Kim when we come back to Q&A. So take 2 minutes and do that while he's getting this set up. Okay, ready, set, go. Please talk to somebody. Want to introduce Doreen, who is with United Way. And as I said earlier, we have partnered with United Way. The city and United Way are partnered. And we're going to go through the application process that she has put together with United Way. And this is where you're going to do your application. So pay attention. Again, this will be The same thing will be online. We also will have a handbook that's pretty much together. We just want to make sure we have it all put together the right way. That we'll put up on the city's website, which you can get to as well. So let's welcome Doreen.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. As Kim said, we're really excited to be partnering with the city and partnering with all of you. We recognize both of our organizations that investing in your organizations and your programs, we're investing in our communities as a partner. And to be a better partner, we recognize how hard you all work and your time is valuable and it should be spent on the services you provide. Hopefully less time filling out forms and applications. So we have to do it. So we're going to try and make it easy for you with a one-stop shop. So I'm going to go over the tool where you're going to submit your application. It's called EC Impact. The link was in the initial email that you received when the RFP went out. It will also be in this PowerPoint. And basically the overview is that you're going to register your organization, create an account, register your agency, register your programs, then you're going to assign them to the City of Columbus proposal, and then you're going to complete the forms for the proposal. So that's sort of your basic overview here. So I'm going to go through each of those steps. So if you have applied for United Way funding in our previous cycle this year, that login will still work. If you don't remember what it is, you can put in your email and ask to reset your password and you'll get a link to do so. And again, if you applied and received funding from United Way, your login will work. And if you applied during our investment process but did not receive funding, your login should still work as well. If you haven't done either of those, then you just need to create a login. So when you get to the sign-in page, you're going to go to the bottom where it says to create a login, and that all gets triggered by entering your EIN number. Then once you do that, you're going to register your agency. So this is all your general agency registration. Again, if you already did this through the United Way process, and this will already be populated for you. Yay! I'm really excited about that. I hate double data entry. If it's your first time, then you will have to enter it, but it will get saved and it'll be there again for the next United Way investment process and the next city investment process. And then what you want to do is assign your agency to the City of Columbus proposal. You'll see that on the bottom of the screen. You're going to review all your agency information. If anything has changed, if you put this information in before through the United Way investment process, you can go ahead and make those changes. Both of our organizations will see that. And when you're ready, you're going to click Complete Registration. What's nice about this tool is there's always a status bar at the top telling you where you are, if you've completed something, if you're halfway. So you want to look for that green to confirm that you've completed your registration of your agency. Now, the next thing you're going to do is add your programs. Again, I'm really excited. I just love pre-populated data. It's so nice. That's why I probably spent too much online, because my credit card is saved. But again, if you apply for funding for United Way, your agency is in there, and if you want to apply to city funding towards the same program, you can select that program. So let's say United Way funded you 30% and you want to match the rest with the city, you can pick that program. You can also add a new program, and then that'll be tied to your agency as well. So you can add as many programs as you need to. That's your final step. And just as you did for your agency, now you're going to fill out program information. And again, guess what? If it's a program that you submitted to United Way, that will all be pre-populated for you as well. If you are finished, you've added all your programs, and the next thing is to access the forms for the actual proposal. So this is where you're going to tell Kim and Elon about all the great work you're doing, what you project for outputs and outcomes, and that's going to be on 2 forms that you're going to see underneath that red bar. And once you do that, you're going to see each program that's registered. You're going to see them listed. And then if you need to add more programs, you can go back and repeat the previous steps to add programs. So you can also do them at the beginning. So for each program, you're going to fill out your proposal form. You also want to make sure that you're watching those status bars at the top that will tell you where you are in the process, and you want to save your work as you go. It's nice, big, colorful green and purple disc that most people don't even know what that is anymore, that you're going to click on to save. So that's basically it. You want to make sure you create a login. You're going to register your agency, register your programs, assign them to the City of Columbus proposal. Then you're going to go in and fill out those forms. You all get a copy of this. If you have questions about the content of your grant application, if your program fitting with the investment priorities, that's a question for Kim. If you have questions about, I can't log in, or I thought I saved it, but I can't find my work, all that kind of stuff, that's my job. And so we have email that many of you may know, if you're a partner with United Way, reporting.help@UW Central Ohio. That gets to all of my team, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible to help you. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for Doreen specifically about the portal? Go ahead.
Is there a way to preview and print those forms
Yes.
before having to fill them out?
Yes,
Why
yes.
don't you repeat that?
Yes, the question is, can we preview and print the forms? So the forms are the actual RFP part of the packet that you received. They should look the same, but you can also print them out without any information in them. If you like to work that way, you can fill them out and print them as well before you do your final submittal.
So there aren't like required fields that prevent you from proceeding?
No.
Does the system detect, if say I go all the way through, does it detect if I miss something? Will it not allow me to submit if I miss something?
Yep, so there are, so things like your EIN, there are certain things that are required, but not all of it is. But again, you want to fill out as much as possible in the application for the award process so we get as much information about you. So I would recommend that you do that. Not all fields are required, but many of them are. And again, you can print that out as you go so you can look at it, you can save screenshots, all that kind of stuff. And if you have questions doing that, email us at the reporting email, we can help you.
I'm Cindy here. I have a question. So multiple people from our organization have logins for the portal, and I'm wondering if multiple logins can all work on the same application, or does it really live under one login only?
The question was, several people from my organization have logged in to the system. Can we all log in and work on the application? Once the forms and the programs are assigned to your agency and to the proposal, yes, you can log in and access that because all of those users are assigned to that information. I would not recommend all being in there at once. But if you want to try it and give me a call so we can see what happens, sure. But you should all be able to access the status of your proposal and make edits and look at it. And again, if you have questions about that, just email us. If you're in the middle of it and you see some weird things happening, just contact us.
I'm assuming from the statistics that you gave, the programs and the agencies that you can apply for more than one program. I just wanted to confirm you can put multiple applications in.
Okay, so the question was, can you apply for more than one program as an agency? The answer is yes, and so this system will allow you to do that. And so yes, so like I said, in the first round, we had 39 programs, 31 agencies. So obviously someone got a couple. And so yes, and so in this round, same thing. You can apply for more than one. But remember, you're now competing against yourself as well. You know, that's, so yes, that's the answer to that question. So you had another.
The other question is, you've got 5 different areas of outcomes. Do you get more points if your program fits them all?
No.
Okay, thank you.
So the question is, do you get more points if you try to hit all the outcomes? The answer is no. Okay, any more questions for Doreen?
I was wondering if there is a character limitation within the portal, like certain types of characters or a number of characters, if it includes spaces,
Yep.
those kind of things.
That's an excellent question. So the question was, are there character limitations? So the form is built out in sections. So for certain things, if it's asking you about zip code, that's going to be limited to what a zip code requires, so numbers and a certain number of digits. So different areas of the form have limitations. I think there are some word limitations for some of the narrative pieces. And I think most of them, where there are limitations, it will tell you, there's a character limit or something like that. Good question.
So I logged into the EC portal, and I'm just confused about, so there's the file uploads, and there's the agency information. Is the agency information the form that you're referring to?
Yep.
So do we actually submit a narrative?
So the question is about registering your agency profile?
So yeah, I'm registered, I'm in, and I see the items, and there's agency information to asterisk, and there's file uploads. So the agency information is all of our background, it's capacity assessment, all your general eligibility checkboxes, fiscal year.
Yep.
And then that's it. So I'm just confused, like where do we actually answer the question?
Yep. So, so first step is you're going to log in, then you're going to complete that profile, then you're going to add your programs, and then once you do that, you'll see the City of Columbus, the 2019 full proposal. That's where you actually fill out the forms.
So I'm in there. That's
Okay.
why I don't know. So I'm in the 2019, I registered, I'm in the full proposal.
Did you register your programs too?
Maybe that's what I missed.
Yep.
So.
I'll pop over there and we can look at it.
Okay, that'd be good. So registering your programs is different from just registering your agency?
Yep, you want to do your agency, and then you want to assign your programs, and then once you've done both of those, you'll see the proposal forms that you fill out. They'll be available, and then that's where you're going to answer the questions about it. One more step, one more step. One more step.
So did everybody understand what they were talking about?
Yep, so you want to register your agency and assign your programs, and then that'll give you access to the forms to complete the full proposal.
So when you assign your programs, to her question about applying for two different programs, in that example, you would do this all within the same stream. You wouldn't have to come back in and have two separate kind of applications, if you will, that you could do multiple programs within this one stream.
That's a good question. Yes and no. So you're going to register your agency once. You're going to pick your program and fill out the forms for that program, because you're going to have different answers for that program. If it's, let's say you have a job readiness program, a workforce development program for IT, my friend's Priscalis over there, and you want to apply for that program, you fill out the form for that program, then you go back, add another program, and then fill out the form for that program as well. So it's in one session, but you need to go back and assign the program, because they're actually two different applications, because you're talking about two different interventions, two different
Basically,
programs.
you go in, add a program, finish one before you begin.
Exactly. Yep. And again, just email us if you get stuck or tripped up during any of that.
So, and I just want to add, before you start bombarding me with questions, that we are going to develop an FAQ, and so questions that you're hearing today, emails that I've already gotten, phone calls with questions, we'll put up on the city's website under Department of Development, and so I'll be populating that with questions and hopefully answers to those questions. Okay, one last call. Anything else for Doreen? Okay, let's give her another round of applause. Okay, just remember, I'm leaving at 3. Ellen's here till 5:30. So any questions about the RFP that either Ellen and I could answer? So since you volunteered to try to do the whole 5 things, before you ask your question, you have to do all 5. No, just kidding. Okay, so what's your question?
What type of nonprofits do you not fund?
What type of nonprofits do we not
For
fund?
example, Dropout Recovery School.
So is it a 501c3?
Yes.
And if you're a 501c3, then you are eligible to apply.
What is the range for the grant request that you would suggest that we stay in?
I'd ask for more than $100. So just to give you an idea, and I'm not saying this should be the range even, in the first round, I think the lowest was like, I'm thinking like 6,000, something like that. The highest was 400,000. So, the other thing that I did not say is that if you're funded in this round, then that funding is for 2 years. I mean, so you'll get the same amount the second year, again, conditioned on whether the city hasn't gone bankrupt. No, I shouldn't say that. Whether the city, has that in its budget and you've been performing. If you haven't been performing, then we'd have to relook at that. So it's a 2-year cycle. And then in 2020, the idea is that we will go through this again. And if we've learned that a 2-year cycle is a good cycle versus a 3-year cycle, then you'll see another 2-year. Okay, so another question right here.
I think I heard you saying in part of another question that we can go in through more than one of the investment priorities, correct?
Yes.
For each of those priorities, do we have to address each of the bullets underneath? So when it says that include, does it mean that must include all?
So when you are going through the portal, you're going to pick one.
Okay.
So that's your primary strategy. So you may, in your description, you may say, in addition to this, we also do these things. But so we really want you to pick one and say, this is the one that we really are going to focus on. So then that outcome becomes the outcome.
Thank you.
Back in the back, Jerry.
Thank you, Kim. I have 2 questions. The first one is on the allocation. How do we receive the allocations? We haven't been involved in this process before. So is that quarterly at the end, and you're just talking about 2 years? How does that come?
Right.
And the second would be administrative overhead expenses like we have for electronic records and for like independent auditors. If we do happen to get a grant, can we use a percentage of whatever that is of our total budget to pay those type of expenses?
So to answer your second question first, I'm pretty sure that we can, but let us put, so can we do an independent audit to pay for that?
Percentage of it, not
A percentage of it. So let's wait and put that on the FAQ, and I'll get an answer, because I don't want to say something that I'm not allowed to say. And then the first question was, how is it allocated? I'm still thinking about it because, and we'll probably propose something, but the way we did it this time for most agencies under the first cycle was we did it in advance of a quarter. So say you got $100,000 for the year, you would get $25,000 cash up front, then you would spend that down and then spend your own funds for the next quarter, and then come back to me and say, here's how we spent your first 25, here's how we spent the second 25, now reimburse us for that 25, then it's reimbursement for the next 2 quarters. Okay, so that's how we've done it in the past. We've played with it for a couple agencies who had some different needs. So there is flexibility, and within that flexibility, I want to think about it. You'll never see 100% advance, but we can look at it. Next question. Wait, we'll go one more for this side of the room, and then we'll go on this side. So go ahead.
You may have partially answered this, Kim, but we have an existing workforce development program that touches on 3 of your primary outcomes. Should we, should we select the best fit and then bring in some of the other activities related to it, or are you really looking for 3 applications?
Is this the same program, or are you doing 3
It's
different
the same
programs?
program. I'm with Alvis.
Right, so
and
you
it's
would,
the same program,
so
but
since it's the same program, so the question is, should we pick 3 outcomes and do 3 different programs? And it's not 3 different. So if it's one program, just pick the one that makes the most sense.
okay.
That's the best for your program. And then again, allude to those other 2 and say that's the strength of this program, as we're doing 3 out of these 5. That's one way I would say it if I was writing the grant.
It's easier for us and easier for you because you only have to read 1 application.
Correct. We like easy. This is the big easy. Okay, this side of the room. Yes, sir.
I've heard reference to this a couple times. I just want to be clear. You're reading the proposals. Who is making the judgment call? Who's making the judgment call on the proposals to be funded or not?
That's a really good question. So we are going to have both internal and external review team that'll come together and look at these. We haven't put that together yet, but it's going to be a team of people similar to what United Way did in their process. So it's not just going to be me reading them all or Elin reading them all. In fact, we may not even be reviewers, depending on how we build the team. We may just be facilitating that. So then that group would then recommend through their process who should be funded. And then, this is a really good question we haven't really thought through. So Elin, what are you saying to me?
Well, it'll likely be approved through the mayor's office. That's final approval, then go to council.
Right. So I guess there's 4 steps thinking about it. So there's a review team. Because it's coming through Department of Development, we'll take it to our director, who's Steve Shoney, and then he will take that to the mayor's office, and then obviously council has the last word in terms of the actual budget. Did that answer the question? Kind of, sort of? Okay, good. If it's something different, and as we build this team, we can let you know, this team of reviewers, more what it looks like. Okay, yes?
I have a couple of questions. The first one is just, I'm assuming that the $4 million pool is for year 1?
Yes.
2 years?
So yes, so for year 1.
And then the second one is really about the timing, because the RFP says that the program year starts January 1.
Mm-hmm.
The timeline doesn't have us really signing contracts until March.
Right.
So how do you want us to reflect that in terms of budget and outcomes? Are we still giving you a full year? And also the payment question, I guess, is that question as well.
Right. So the question is about how are we going to put the contracts together? So is this a calendar year? And then how are we going to do outcomes? So the first question about budget's a little easier. We're going to backdate it to January 1st. So do your budget on a calendar year. So let's say back to that 100,000. Say we don't, this happens a lot, we don't enter an agreement until March. You're going to get an advance that covers that first quarter, January, February, March. You might get that in March. And then you're going to start what's going to be reimbursed April, May, June. So everybody will be on the same calendar. January through December 31st, 2019. Now the question about outcomes, we're going to have to kind of learn as we go here, because if, let's say it's a brand new program that you haven't done before, I'm going to have to think about that one. Like, if you come back and say, we haven't really started a program yet, and we can't start it till we have the funding, then January, February, March really doesn't make sense, because there's nothing, unless you have staff who are kind of working on it already to get it going. So we can kind of negotiate that, but I would build a 12-month calendar and say this is our budget, and then we'll figure out how to do the contract. Okay, pass it over to Don over there that way, and then we'll come back this way.
Is it possible to partner with another organization?
So the question was, are we allowed to partner with an organization? The answer is absolutely. My personal goal is that through this 2-year process, and as we learn from each other, is learn how to build a more collaborative making funding strategy. Instead of just saying, hey, who's your partner? Give us a letter of support, just to show us that collaboration just doesn't work. But what does true collaboration look like? What does it truly look like to do collective impact? If we can learn about that together, and then you could help us be better funders through the process. And since United Way is our partner, you can help them be a better collaborative funder. But even whatever you can do now to say, hey, look, we got 2 people who are collaborating that's helping us do that. That gives you a strong proposal.
Kim or Doreen, can you speak to how that works in EC Impact if they want to partner with each other?
That's a good question. I would recommend that one agency be the applying agency, and then in your proposal, talk about the partnership and how you want to manage that.
Good. And if it's a real collaborative that you're bringing to the table, really speak to that. Show, here's what this team is contributing. Whether it's money or resources or staff, but show that contribution, because to me that shows collaboration and partnership. Okay, we're going to keep going this way, and then we'll come back. So go ahead right here.
My question is, if your grant is approved and funds are distributed for that 2-year cycle, could you speak into the performance review process?
So we are going to look at having a reporting. So the reporting process will go through United Way's portal. And so I think we're looking at like 6 months. So there'll be a report at 6 months and a report at 12 months. Right now we do quarterly. And even though it's been really good, and I think we've all really learned a lot through it, I'm thinking more that it would be on a 6-month basis. I'm not sure what United Way does. Is it trimester?
Yeah, we did 3 reporting periods that cover 4
Here,
months. We're actually revisiting our reporting structure, which many of you have had meetings with our data science team. But traditionally, we did 3 reporting periods that covered 4 months of data. And we found that depending on your program's cadence, your calendar, if you deal with cohorts, that it didn't really make sense. If I'm asking you for school year data in June, if you run on an education calendar, an academic calendar year, that doesn't make sense. So we're actually moving more towards somewhat customized reporting depending on your program. So you tell us when you think you have meaningful outcomes based on your experience with your program or what you anticipate with a new program. And we're also leaning more towards being a support to empower you to manage your own data for your own purposes, to seek more funding other than United Way. It's a better use of our time to support you in that than to harass you for reams of data that you might not have capacity to collect. So that's sort of how our model is shifting. And, just like the city, we have broad categories that we fund in terms of priorities, good jobs, education, but we know not every good jobs program is the same. And sometimes you're investing in someone and you're not going to get an outcome within 4 months just because United Way told you to fill out a form. So we're going to a little bit more flexible reporting depending on your program when you feel you will get outcomes, and also because we understand that our relationship with our partners, we hope, will span a longer period of time, and that not much is going to happen in that calendar year.
Great. So that's a really good example of what I think I'm hoping for over the next 2 years with United Way is a real collaboration between our agencies, that they're bringing something to the table, and I think we're going to learn a lot from them as they're learning. And so I'm hoping that by the time we get to February, when we actually put contracts together, we'll have a more clear idea of what outcome reporting is going to look like, how we want to do it. But even then, and those of you who know me, that I'm always learning, and we learn by doing, and so we'll just keep learning as we go, so that this time next year we may say year 2 of this cycle needs to look a little bit different, because the goal is that vision of we want to have an impact in people's lives towards economic security and resilience. Okay, I keep preaching, but that's who up here? Blue, there we go.
My question is more around outcomes.
Okay.
One of the programs we'd like to apply for is food pantry program, which is a more transactional relationship with clients, not case management and that sort of thing. So I guess 2 things. You've got 2 required outcomes that we need to agree to report on, and even outcomes in general. Because we have clients that might come in once a year and we never see them again, and we may have more regular clients. I guess the only way we could do that would be to develop some kind of a surveying mechanism, which may or may not be overly scientific. Is that an acceptable way to do outcomes?
That's what we want to do together, is figure that kind of stuff out, yeah. So how are you measuring, showing how you're measuring and how that's working for you?
So if we're feeling a little squishy on that part, that shouldn't necessarily discourage us from applying and working through that part together.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, gray. And then the other gray.
I have a couple questions. First, is the city allocating a certain amount of money toward each investment priority? So each of these different investment priorities, are those applications competing against each other, or is the whole pool competing against one another? So say there were all the best applications were in jobs through employment. Would you give it all there, or?
Okay, so good question. So out of the $4 million is so much allocated to each of those 5 priorities, and the answer is, unless Elin corrects me, is no. Okay, thumbs up. So it's a pool. So if the best applications all come under stabilization and resource supports, that's where we're going. And I'm sure as reviewers, we're going to be thinking about all of them. But there's not, I tried to say this at the beginning, but I'll repeat it. Just because income through employment was the number 1 doesn't mean it's the number 1. It just happened to be first on that list. So we're not going to try to make it happen so that each one of them has a certain amount of money.
Thank you.
And then second question?
Yes, in the review criteria, there's a note about that your budget or your ask is a reasonable proportion of the overall budget. I feel like different funders tend to have a different idea of what a reasonable proportion is. Some want it to be a lot, some want it to be a smaller amount.
Right.
What would you say your view is on that?
That it would be reasonable? That's why we use the word reasonable. So when we look at it and we say, you have $1 million budget and you're asking for $50,000, is that reasonable? Or if you have $1 million budget and you're asking for $900,000, is that reasonable? I don't know, it could be. It depends on how you present to us. Here's why we're asking you for this amount of money. That's why I'm going back to my statement about don't go after this just to chase the money. Really come to us and say, we're going to take, that's why we use the word investment. The city, for the past few years, I've been trying to get us as a city to change our language from granting to investing. And I think United Way's been doing that too. So we are starting to see this $4 million investment. So you show us why we should be investing this money in the program that you're applying for. Okay?
Okay, one more. Is there a date when we can no longer ask questions?
At 3 o'clock today. No, so that use the human, whatever that, my human service program at columbus.gov, is that right? Okay, he's got to go find it. Just use that and ask questions forever, up through January 4th, 5 o'clock.
Thank you.
But then even after that, you'll probably have questions, about why did I do what I just did? Okay, Carrie.
I have a question about outcomes.
Okay.
So like an outcome is percent of people who report having a quality job. What's the greater, what's the denominator in the percent? Is it percent of people in Columbus? Is it percent of people who come in contact with our agency?
It's it's the percent that you're working with in that program.
Okay.
Oh, there it is right there. And we always say Mr. Kim Stans, just so people know who I am and who I'm not. Okay, over here in the back and then up front.
So it says it's a 2-year grant from January 1st, 2019 through December 31st of 2020.
Correct.
If we were to plan the calendar, do we plan it for 2 years, or we plan it for 1? And then would we be required to do a second year if we were approved for a second year?
So you are applying for 1 year. Because we can't guarantee the money for a second year, but so the application is for 2019, and then you'll do another application the end of next year for 2020. It'll be a lot easier, but there also is opportunity to, look at things if you've learned through that first year, we need to do things a little differently. That's something you can put on the table. Okay? Up front here.
I just have a quick question about the applicants in the first cycle. How, you said you invested 39 programs.
Good job on the investment thing.
How many applicants and programs applied for the program?
Oh my gosh, I don't. There was, I don't know because I wasn't in charge then, so I don't remember there was a lot. So like we can talk about United Way. They had more money. You had $25 million worth of requests, I think, on 190. Does that sound right? 190 applications. And how many did you fund?
Over 80.
So they funded 80, and you had about 8 million. To kind of give, I think there was over 100 applications that we had the first round. Okay, over here.
Morna Smith from Nationwide Children's Hospital, helping neighbors, healthy families. A couple of questions. One is, what is the original source of funds? Is it city general revenue?
So it's two combination, general revenue funds, and it's called emergency human service funding, which comes from the hotel motel bed tax. So normally that $4 million is about half of each. So you really can just say it's general fund.
Thank you. My other question was about the use of incentives. You've been clear about not having paying for food in the program.
Yeah.
What about other incentives, such as to complete a survey or other kinds of follow-up, or to participate in a program, say, to motivate a high-risk individual?
Yeah, like bus tickets. So yeah, if the incentive fits with the program and the program participant, is benefiting from that. Yeah. Okay, back over here, Kat. I know a few people in the room. I don't know everybody.
So my question is, if your organization already receives city funds, but potentially through maybe the same stream, but a different stream, is that calculated as part of your leverage?
For the same program?
For similar activities within the program, yeah.
So if you're an agency that's getting funding from the city from another source, so let's say it's a federal source or it's
CDBG.
like CDBG, for that specific program?
Yes.
Sure, you can, and there won't be, we won't ding anyone for that either. That's the opposite side of that question. You know, oh, you already get city money, you shouldn't get city money, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Oh, I think.
Oh.
So, I know you mentioned the strength in the partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
If the city receives kind of two proposals that come in and they think these could work really well together, is there a possibility that could happen, where after we've applied, that's kind of part of the decision making is then?
I think we should all work together. I
Help
don't know.
facilitate that partnership, would you help, would that be something?
I don't
that
know.
would happen?
Like say if it didn't look like they get funded separately, or
Yeah,
they
maybe.
just came in and we just say, hey, these two really like fit.
Blend well.
I don't know. That's a learning thing for me. So yeah, so I think that would be something that the reviewer team could consider. Like that's
particularly if agencies are open to that. If you say, hey, there's another part for myself, I'll already this out there, then we're happy to make that. At least have that conversation with you. So.
right. Good thought. Okay, any more questions? We're doing really good. Couple more minutes. This is your last chance. Okay.
In the application, I'm still hung up on outcomes. In the application, the outcome is a percent of people who say maintain stable income. Are we supposed to predict what that percentage will be? Because some of this is kind of new for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you would, so here's the outcome we're shooting for you're just gonna give it your best shot. I wouldn't go to 100%, right? So some of you who have worked with me know that when we get into this and we really start looking at programs and we get funded, let's say you're funded, that if you make mistakes, it's okay. If you set your goals too high or too low, you know, let's work at it together. So it's a learning thing. So if you enter into this, you're entering into a learning lab with us and with each other too. Okay, did that answer your question, Carrie? Okay, you had your hand up earlier.
I did. I thought the question might be answered.
Okay.
So if there's a partnership relationship and it's two organizations that are standalone, do both of them have to be registered in the charity, have their certificates as it relates to the beginning part?
Oh, is it charitable?
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who's doing work in the city really is supposed to have, if it's applicable, should have that. So, yeah, I would look at both agencies and just ask the same question. Is it applicable to you and to me?
So I didn't know if there's a lead agency, is there a way to show that the partner agency has their designation as well?
Oh, I don't know if we could actually, I would just describe it in the narrative because you're describing that partnership. Okay, a couple more questions.
I'm looking at the income through employment and the outcomes that you're looking for, the percent of people obtaining and retaining employment. That's going to be two different percentages. Should we list that as two different?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And also, what kind of retention term are you looking at? Are they stayed employed for 60 days, 90 days?
So that's going to be up to you. So in your program design, yeah. So we didn't say retention means this. You're gonna propose to us. Here's what retention means to us. How we're gonna measure that.
Okay, thank you.
And then one more question.
Just one question, kind of going back to my earlier about you're funded for 1 year, should we plan for 2? If a program, say, applies as like a pilot initiative where you're just starting something off and it would take the first year to really get it set up and you don't necessarily have the outcomes, are they less likely to be funded because they might not have the output numbers by the end of the first year?
So if I was designing that program, that's what I'd build into it. And say this is a new program, here's what we foresee in this first year. Not going to be what we expect in year 2, but we're building towards that. So I would describe that. Does that answer your question? Kind of, sort of? Okay. Okay, last chance for a question. Shelley, I can't believe you didn't ask me a question.
I can if you'd like.
No, that's okay.
I do.
Okay, good.
It's about defining leverage. And you mentioned it earlier. Leverage, is it necessarily dollars, singularly dollars, versus leverage in terms of you're collaborating with a half a dozen agencies and the efficiency of scale, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
That kind of leverage counts,
Right.
not just money leverage.
Right. And you'll see in the RFP, we didn't say, you must show us this much leverage. It's just, it's a tone to your proposal that says, we're thinking about this. So yes, leverage isn't just money. Leverage is whatever you're showing us is that our investment is bringing these other things together too. Leverage is one of those crazy words. I mean, I've written enough grants that it's like, but wait, if you were over here, my thing would look like leverage to you. It's like, what is leverage? So that's a philosophical question for another day. Okay, so it's 3 o'clock. I really appreciate you taking time to be with us. Look forward to seeing applications. Say goodbye to your neighbor who you met.